Hi. As we look at Excel today, we are going to spend some time with Excel worksheets. Now, you may be one of those people who creates a spreadsheet and then saves it within the workbook. And that's perfectly fine, but once in a while you may find that you're creating a spreadsheet and saving it, save for January, and then one for February, and then one for March, and one for April, etc. When, if you take advantage of worksheets, you could create a worksheet for January, one for February, one for March, one for April, and then you could save them all within the same workbook, say, named for the year. So worksheets are a way of organizing the spreadsheets that you do create, and they just help you work more efficiently. Hi, I'm Terry, one of the Consumer Technology Specialists for Mid-Continent Public Library, and let's learn about Excel worksheets today. As a quick review, rows in Excel go across the screen. Columns in Excel go down the screen. Rows have numbers, columns have letters, and the intersection of columns and rows is called a cell, and cells get their names from the column letter and the row number. So this is, for example, D4. And we put them together in one giant workspace that is called a worksheet. And each worksheet has its own tab, so you can get to it very easily, starting with sheet 1, and like if I click on a sheet tab, it becomes active, and this is the one that I am working on. Sheet 4, I click again, and here is sheet 7, and now I'm working on it. Each sheet is individual and unique from all of the other sheets. So if I were to go to sheet 1 and format it so that it looked beautiful, that would not in any way affect the other sheets within this workbook. But you can see how whether I have a year's worth of information and each sheet tab is a month, or I have a huge inventory of, say, computers, and I have a sheet for each model where I record all of the serial numbers, or any number of different kinds of combinations of information, that worksheets can be your best friend. So let's see, first of all, how we can move around with these worksheets and even add others. Well, to add others, let's come over to the far right of where we have those worksheet tabs, and there's a plus sign. And the tooltip even says New Sheet, so I can click on the plus sign. And now, because I had sheet 1 selected, sheet 14, the new sheet, is added to the right of sheet 1. But see how easy that is to add a new sheet if you find you need more information. One word of caution, while you can add as many worksheets as the memory of your machine will allow, the larger the number of worksheets and the larger number of cells that have information within those worksheets, the slower it may be in opening up a workbook. So just kind of keep track of that, and if you find that it's getting slower and slower to open a workbook, you might decide to move some of those worksheets to, say, a new workbook. Well, let's talk about how we can navigate these worksheets as well. So to the left of those worksheet tabs, we have little navigation arrows, and right now I can click on the one to the right, and you can see how it pulled me to number 14, then I can see number 2, then number 3, and you can kind of just see as I go through, it moves me one at a time. Now the only thing about these arrows on the left is I don't see anyone that's active. I would have to then find, say, sheet 11, click on it to make it the active sheet, which we can see here. The same thing works in reverse with this left arrow, of course, and I can go back one tab at a time using those arrows. But there's some other things we can do as well, and my favorite, I think, is I can right-click and I can see a list of each worksheet tab in the order that it is arranged in this workbook. And so it's telling me that right now I'm on sheet 11, but if I want to go to 5, I simply click on sheet 5 and click OK. And it not only takes me to where I can see sheet 5, but it activates sheet 5. So if you think maybe you have 200 worksheets and you need to go to, I don't know, 115, that right click can be an amazing friend. Now there is another way that we can navigate as well on the right, and it's kind of to the left of that little plus sign, and that's the ellipsis. So when I click on the ellipsis, it also takes me one sheet at a time, but it activates each sheet as I move to the right, which is a really nice feature as well. Then there is one other tip that I can give you for those little navigation arrows on the left, and that is if I hold down the control key and then click on those navigation keys, it should take me to sheet 1, which it didn't activate them, but at least it got me there. It's where I could activate it. So another nice little tip that might help you move around in these worksheet tabs. Now, to make these more accessible, if you come down to sheet 1 is where we're going to do our work, we can right click on the sheet tab. And the very first thing that we can do is insert. So let's click insert. And this is a little bit different than that plus sign, where it brings up a dialog box and it gives you a list of a lot of default templates that you could use. But for the most part, you're just going to go with this upper left very first choice of worksheet and click OK. And notice that I was clicked on sheet 1 and it has added the new worksheet to the left of sheet 1, even though when we used that arrow, it added something to the right. Now let's say that I really want to fix this a little better, so I want to move sheet 15 to the right of sheet 14. All I need to do is click on sheet tab 15, and then I can click and drag. Now you'll notice that my mouse turns into an upward pointing arrow, and it's even grabbed a sheet. And to the left of that just a bit, right at the border between sheet 15 and sheet 1, there is a little kind of carroty type of arrow pointing down, showing that's where I would drop this sheet off. So as I drag to the right, see how that little carrot moves? And I'm going to drag one more time so that that little carrot is pointing between sheet 14 and sheet 2, and then let up on my mouse, and now I have sheet 1, 14, 15, and then 2. So that is sometimes a very convenient way to move sheet tabs if they're just slightly out of order. Well, let's go back to sheet 1, and then I'm going to right click because that was insert. Well, I could also delete. I don't really want to delete sheet 1. Let's delete 15. So I'll go over to sheet 15, do my right click, and delete. Now there are other ways to do what I'm showing you, but these are so convenient with a right click. Well, let's go back to sheet 1, do my right click, and we could also rename. So I can rename sheet 1. I could maybe call this January and press enter, and it sets it into that tab. Now another way to change a sheet tab name is to double click on the sheet tab. And see how there is kind of this gray background behind where it says sheet 14? Well, I could then type February there and press enter again. So that is another way to change those names. Let's go back to January, do our right click. Now move or copy. I think this is the slickest thing that any of the Microsoft products do because it's all connected. So let's look at move or copy. And we have 3 parts to this dialog box. So first of all, do we want to move or copy this selected sheet to the book where this is simply the workbook where we are right now, worksheet example. If I click the drop down on the right, I could actually move this worksheet to a totally new blank workbook where it would be the only worksheet. And that is such a nice way to take a worksheet from a really large workbook that has many, many, many worksheets, and just take that one and hand it to someone who needs just that one worksheet. The other thing that you can do is that if you have an existing workbook, another existing workbook open, say behind this one that I'm working on, then it would also be listed, and I could move this worksheet to another worksheet in another workbook. Or, of course, I could also create a copy. But in this case, we're just going to stay within our example. Then when I say I want to move or copy, well, it says, okay, before which sheet? And of course, this list changes depending on whether you selected a new book or another outside existing workbook, or if you want to stay in this one. Well, we'll just say we're going to put it before sheet 4. And then this is the most important part of this whole dialog box, and usually I start at the bottom left where it says create a copy, because if I want to create a copy and forget to check this box, then I'm just moving the original to a new location. So I'm going to create a copy, and it's going to go before sheet 4. We'll click OK, and so now I still have January, but I have my copy of January between sheet 3 and sheet 4. Now let's go back to January, because that was move or copy. And then let's come down to tab color. Now, using tab color can be really helpful. Let's say that you have those 12 months and each month is a different worksheet tab. Maybe you want to color code by quarter, for example, or if you have a whole lot of locations and they belong to different districts or divisions, you might color code by district or division. Or you might even color code by not done yet, done but current, and then done but really old, and have 3 different colors that way. So it's just up to you and your creativity and what you need to do as to how you use the tab color setting. But let me show you. Let me make January red here. And while it's active, that color is kind of behind the name of the actual worksheet. If I click off of the worksheet, then you can see, wow, yes, that's really red. So let me come over and do another worksheet here and do the tab color again. Let's make it green. And again, it's very light colored behind the sheet name, but as soon as I click off of it, then I can really see the difference in that color coding. And for some people, this is just way important. For others, not as important. But all I can say is sometimes color helps you navigate through a really large workbook with many, many sheets. Well, let me right-click on January again, because another thing that we can do, although generally I don't do that, is hide the sheets, but you can also just select all sheets. And so sometimes this is what you want to do if you want to do say a find or a find and replace. You would want to just select all of the sheets and then find a specific term or word, and then it would go through all of the sheets and help you find all of those words in all of the different sheets. Now notice that when I selected all, that these worksheet tabs, instead of being kind of a light gray, turned a bright white, which means they are grouped. I can click on a sheet tab that has not been grouped, or I can right click and then I can ungroup the sheets. Now let me show you something else that is really neat about grouping sheets. So let me select January, hold down the Shift key, and then come over to, say, sheet 4. So I have a smaller group, and you can definitely see the bright white grouped sheets as opposed to the lighter gray sheets that aren't grouped. And then this comes in really handy if, well, again, let's say that you have those 12 months, you've created the sheet tabs, and now you want to create a shell of the row headings and the column headings so that all of the information for each one of those months is going to be arranged in a similar fashion. So let's see, let's say district here, if I can type, and then we'll just type Northeast, Southeast, Midwest, Northwest, Southwest. And maybe here we want to have some sort of I don't know, sales total, although that's a really small example, and certainly you might carry this out way far in that row. All right, now here's the nifty part. That was January, but look what happens when I click on February. What? Yes, that's correct. Sheet 2, Sheet 3, Sheet January 2 copy, and Sheet 4. When you group the sheets together, that lets the top worksheet act like it has carbon paper between it and all of these successive sheets. And then you're just typing one time and copying that information to many, many other sheets. Now, there is an issue with that, which you might suspect. If you forget to ungroup, what could happen is, well, let's say I type a sales total and I think I'm typing just for January, but it copies through all of the sheets. There is a possibility that if I already have the sales total for all of the other sheets as well, that I'm overwriting existing information. So be careful when you use grouping. But what a really nice shortcut. Now, again, I can either right-click on the group or I can click on a sheet that is not part of the group and turn off the grouping. And that is really what we can do with those worksheets to make life much better and more convenient and even efficient for what we do with worksheets. So we can insert, we can delete, we can rename, we can move or copy, we can add in some tab color, and we can select sheets to group them, or even select all of the sheets if we want to do a find or a find and replace. To learn even more, visit our mymcpl.org/online learning page, where you will find some really great online resources, which include Universal Class, LinkedIn Learning, and Learning Express Library. Tune in each week as we introduce new videos on a variety of tech topics. You can find us at 1 o'clock on Wednesday and Friday and 2 o'clock on Tuesday. Be sure to find us on Facebook at MCPL 360, or if you prefer, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at MCPLMO, where you can find our MCPL Consumer Technology Resources playlist.